Thanks for attending this webinar, guys. My name is Alex, local realtor right here in Cleveland, and this webinar entirely is going to be about what it's like to move right here in Cleveland. Hopefully I can give you as much information as possible so that if you and your family are moving to the area, I can give you guys enough information to make an educated decision on which areas are going to be right for you and your family. And obviously, if you guys have any questions, I'd love to contact each other and ultimately see how we can help you with this process here at Cleveland. So let's scroll down here. I want to put myself in your guys' shoes. I want to say, where would I move to if I were to move to, say, Pittsburgh? I know nothing about Pittsburgh, even though it's only 2 hours away. When I look at this map, I'm like, do I move to Bethel Park? Do I move to Allison Park? Do I move out what appears to be greenery out here? Is it more, suburban out there? Is it more rural? Like, I have a 3-month-old daughter, so schools moving forward would be very important. We want to be in a walkable area that has access to a ton of different restaurants, maybe a couple bars to grab a drink at, something where I'm in the mix a little bit. That's going to be important for me, but that's not going to be important for everyone. So keep this in mind. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, that if I were to move to a new city, what information would I want to know? So as you scroll down here, I want to look at basically the big overview, right? This is going to be Cleveland, Ohio. This is going to be the inner city of Cleveland. Then you have the inner ring of suburbs that surround Cleveland. Then ultimately you have the outer ring of suburbs here. Now these outer ring of suburbs are about a 30-ish minute drive to downtown Cleveland. But historically, these outer ring suburbs are gonna have the best school districts if that's what you're looking for. Now, what I did here is, this is a map of Cleveland. I basically put a bunch of one-word answers of different areas here in Cleveland. So I'm not gonna go over everything in here. Feel free to pause the video if you need to, take a look at everything. But I wanted to make it as simple as possible if I were to look at this map. Kind of like if I were to move to Pittsburgh, right? I want to know, hey, is Allison Park, does it have high crime? All right, I probably want to avoid that area. What about Oakdale? Oh, that probably has a great place to raise a family. Good schools, let's keep that in mind. So what I did, again, a bunch of one-word answers. I'm not going to go over everything, but we're going to kind of go over what Cleveland has to offer. So downtown Cleveland here, you have the west side, you have the east side, and then ultimately you have the south side. Now all three areas kind of have their own different vibe. Each suburb offers their own different vibe. I mean, we have 59 different municipalities here, which means we have 59 different mayors and politics in terms of what it comes to these actual cities. So keep that in mind, as Cleveland is pretty broken up in terms of different municipalities. So when we look at this, I mean, there's so many different places that you can move to that I can't possibly go over every single place. But let's start over on the west side of Cleveland here. We have Ohio City. I wrote trendy. This is going to be Ohio City, Tremont, Detroit Shoreway. This area right here is ultimately very trendy. This is where we're seeing all the new restaurants and bars open up. A ton of new luxury apartment buildings are going up. This is that place if you want to go out with friends and grab a drink. Like if you're visiting Cleveland for a couple days, you're probably going to go over to Ohio City and check out West 25th, where we have the West Side Market. This is going to be that area that a lot of people visit to. Really fun area, can be quite expensive. Since you are in the inner city, we don't see too many families move there just because you're in the inner city schools, which historically are not the best. So we do have people that move there with kids and they look at other options in terms of schooling. But keep that in mind, we see a lot more single people, maybe couples, or maybe even retirees kind of moving in this place to really get that feel of living in downtown. Now, if you look at the west side entirely, this is going to give you the best Lake Erie access. You're also going to have the best beaches over here in Cleveland. You got Huntington Park over there in Bay Village, and then you have Edgewater Beach, which is actually right near downtown Cleveland. Because ultimately, when you look over here on the east side, we have airport. Well, we have downtown here. We have an airport, and then this takes you up to 90, and then ultimately you have this place called Bracknell, which is a private community, very wealthy, huge mansions overlooking Lake Erie. So again, you don't have Lake Erie public access to Lake Erie, so ultimately West Side is going to give you better access to Lake Erie if that's what you're looking for, which honestly I kind of recommend, because I'm telling you, in the summertime it is beautiful overlooking Lake Erie. It just really gives it a coastal feel, but we'll get a little bit more into that. But when you compare the west side to, say, the south side here, which is going to be like Broadview Heights, over here into North Royalton, Brecksville, this ultimately is a good area to raise your kids. You have a lot of nice homes here. You got good access to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, relatively good access to the highways, Not a ton going on down there, to be honest, but it's got everything you need, right? They're built out. Like Broadview Heights has everything that you need. Brecksville is a good place. It's a nice community, but ultimately there's not a ton to do there. Again, it's going to be a little bit more surrounded by forest and greenery. Where if you head over to Shaker Heights, for instance, Shaker Heights is going to be a completely different vibe. It has that city feel, but also has the best looking homes in all of Cleveland. That comes with a little bit of a price, right? We do have the highest taxes historically over on the east side of Cleveland. That brings us over here to University Circle. This is Cleveland's second downtown. This is where we have our hospitals, university hospitals, as well as the Cleveland Clinic. One of the best hospitals in the world are right here in Cleveland, right here in University Circle. I do have Italian food because we have Little Italy over there. Really good place. It's honestly, it's its own little section off of University Circle, but it's a really good spot to go grab some pastries at a bakery or to go grab some good Italian food. Now, if you take a look at this whole map, right, I have nice community, I have higher crime here, which is going to be separated by pretty much Route 90 and south. We have East Cleveland over here, which has some of the highest crime in Cleveland, ultimately. Right here south of Cleveland, this is going to be the Industrial Valley. Really, there is nothing along this Cuyahoga River. It is all manufacturing, oil, steel, anything that you can imagine is going to be right there in terms of manufacturing. There is going to be no homes, so unfortunately this is a wasted spot right here. If we head east of 271, ultimately this is where a lot of wealthy people live. East of 271, you have Pepper Pike, Moreland Hills, Kirkland Hills, Gates Mills. It's a beautiful area. You're gonna find really big homes on large lots. It's gonna be a little bit more secluded, right? There's gonna be a bunch of trees in the front yard with that house sitting back. So it's definitely a little bit more quiet and a little bit more reserved east of 271. So west side, better access to Lake Erie. The south side here, you're gonna have access to like parks, but also access to Cleveland and Akron, gonna be right in the middle. Then over here on the east side, again, beautiful homes, and then you have a lot of wealthy homes if you keep going a little bit more east. So let's talk about what Cleveland has to offer in terms of the pros of living here. So Cleveland's only a few hour drive from a lot of major cities here. If you look, Detroit is only a 2.5 hour drive. Then you have Columbus, which is the capital of Ohio, is only a 2 hour drive south. Then you have Pittsburgh, which I used as an example earlier, is only a 2 hour drive. You have Chicago, you take 90 pretty much straight to Chicago, it's 5 hours away. You got Niagara Falls up here, right on the border of Canada, 2.5 hours away. Cedar Point, right here. If you're not familiar with Cedar Point is, it's one of the best amusement parks in the world in terms of roller coasters. Only an hour west of Cleveland. And then we have, for snowboarding and skiing, we have Peak & Peak and Holiday Valley. This is gonna go over into Pennsylvania, into upstate New York. Really convenient, honestly, because they have some really nice hills there. It's not by any means, Colorado or anything like that, but they have really good mountains out there. A lot of people don't know that we have access to these places within only a few hour drive, which is really nice. I do like the location of Cleveland. Let's talk about what Cleveland has to offer. Let's start with the pros. We got three major sports teams here, right? We got the Browns, we got the Guardians, and we got the Cavs. Unfortunately, the Browns kind of suck, but luckily we got the Guardians and the Cavs. So if you're huge into sports, this is going to be a good place for you because ultimately Cleveland is pretty small, and the fact that we have three major sports teams downtown is absolutely huge for the city. We talk about two things here in Cleveland: sports and weather. It's actually quite funny. If you move over next, we have a huge arts and cultural scene here. We got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We got the Cleveland Orchestra, which is honestly one of the best in the world. We have a ton of museums here, like the Museum of Art. And we also have Playhouse Square, which is the second largest theater district in New York City, which is New York City as being number one. And then obviously, like I mentioned earlier, we have some of the most amazing hospitals in the country, with the Cleveland Clinic being one of the top hospitals in the world and is also a huge employer right here in Cleveland. So continuing with the pros, we're positioned right along Lake Erie, which gives Cleveland a bit of that coastal feel, especially in the summertime. You've got to head to these beaches. I know I just talked about it earlier that the west side is going to give you access to these beaches. This is actually going to be Edgewater Beach. Overlooks downtown Cleveland. They have a really nice park here, really good views, good atmosphere. They used to do concerts out in the summer. It's always busy over here at Edgewater Park, let's be honest. And then west here, we have Huntington Park, again over in Bay Village, really nice area. Then we have Lakewood Park. This isn't actually a beach by any means, but Lakewood Park overlooks Lake Erie, and it's probably one of the best spots in Cleveland to catch a sunset. Then we have Euclid Park, which is going to be farther east Cleveland. Another really beautiful park, and then some notable mentions here within 30 minutes to an hour. You got Fairview Park, Geneva, and the Headlands. Those are going to be a little bit more east, past Euclid Park, kind of headed to Ashtabula. Honestly, 30 minutes to an hour, really good parks to check out. Now, we can't talk about Cleveland without talking about the Cleveland Metro Parks. The Metro Park system here is one of the best in the entire United States. I mean, when you think of like Denver, Austin, Seattle, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Minneapolis, these all have amazing park systems, and we contend and beat out most, if not all, of their places with our park system. We got 25,000 acres surrounding the city in a ring. This is known as the Emerald Necklace. And if you see here, it pretty much starts in the Rocky River Reservation. It's going to shoot all the way down, wrap all the way down to Brecksville. This is going to connect into the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Then ultimately it's going to head up to Bedford, over to Chagrin, and then over into North Chagrin. So if you live in any of these outer suburbs right here that I was talking about earlier with the inner city suburbs and the outer city suburbs, I mean, you're going to have access to any of these metro parks. They're absolutely stunning if you like to hike, go biking, or I mean, honestly, anything. These are phenomenal metro parks. They even have golf courses there. You can ride horses. It's a really pretty area, and the fact that we have this is really nice. The fact that it wraps around all of Cleveland, it's not like, oh, it's only on the west side or it's only on the east side. I mean, you're going to be within probably a 15-minute drive if you move anywhere in Cleveland from one of the metro parks. Then obviously we got to talk about the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. So take a look here. This is going to be the Emerald Necklace. Kind of, if you can see my cursor here, it kind of shoots all the way down, heads up to Brecksville, over to Bedford, and over to Chagrin. So ultimately it creates this little necklace right around Cleveland that connects into the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Now in the 70s, this was just a protected land. What it was doing, it was protecting from urban sprawl. They were just trying to protect these lands, and then I believe it was like in around 2000, they actually made this into a national park. So it's completely protected, which is, I think, a great addition because you're smack dab in the middle of Cleveland here and Akron. So really, anywhere in Cleveland, you're gonna have access to a bunch of hiking and trails. And I mean, look at this waterfall. This one might be Brandywine Falls, if I'm not mistaken. I am not too sure, but ton of beautiful waterfalls here. All right, continuing with the pros. Well, let's talk about the school districts, because if you look at the top 10 best school districts in all of Ohio, 5 out of 10 of them are actually going to be located in Cleveland, Ohio. I mean, look, you have School School District at number 3 over there on the east side. You got Rocky River at number 5, which is going to be on the west side. Chagrin Falls, which is going to be on the east side. Beechwood as well, east side. And then Hudson's going to be south of Cleveland, a little bit more towards the Akron area. And here on this slide, this is just circles showing these are historically the best school districts here in Cleveland. So you can see on the west side, you're gonna have this huge pocket pretty much from Lakewood all the way over to Avon Lake. Then when you head south, you have Strongsville, pretty much wrapping over here to Broadview Heights and Brecksville. And then over here on the east side, pretty much from like Shaker Heights, Beechwood to Chagrin, all the way down to Aurora. These are also gonna be really good school districts. Then obviously, like I said, we have Hudson here. Hudson, again, it gets a little bit more into Summit County, but realistically, it's only 35, maybe 40 minutes out of the way. It's a really nice area. Kind of moving on from the pros, let's talk about the cons. The cons here in Cleveland, the first one, the weather. If you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. And I promise you the weather here is one of the things that people talk about the most. Now, when you look at the average temp range, you can see in January, February, I'll be honest with you, they're cold, right? It's gray. I think that's my biggest issue here with the weather. It's not even the fact that it's cold, it's that we get a lot of overcast from Lake Erie, which actually, it just blocks the sun for a couple months. I'm telling you, it's just pretty gray here. That's my biggest gripe, because January and February, it is cold. You're not really doing a whole lot. That's the time to set up vacations, head down to Florida, catch some sun, because not a whole lot's happening in January, February. That's when we get most of our snow as well. Then we move over into March. That's going to be our first break in the weather. We're starting to see the sun come through. We're getting about a 50-degree day here, but you're still going to get some snowfall randomly throughout the month of March here. Moving into April. April's crazy. It is bipolar as heck. It can rain, snow, sleet, thunderstorm, all in one day. It's that weird transition of spring. So we're going to get a lot of rain, a lot of nice days as well. You'll look at your weather app and it'll say 7 straight days of rain, and it might only rain 3 days. It's just really hard to predict the weather here in Ohio. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of Lake Erie or just the place that we're at in terms of in the country. I don't know, but the weather people are wrong a lot here in Ohio. So the best chance is to always look outside and kind of make a judgment for yourself. Then we got May. This is when we're starting to hit summertime. May, June, July, August. We got summer here. The temperatures get up into about the 80s. At night, they're chilling in the 60s. So really, it doesn't get that hot here. But I will say we do have pretty high levels of humidity here in Cleveland. So sometimes it'll be like 90 degrees. And I'm like, it doesn't feel like 90 degrees. And then other days, it's like 78 degrees. And I am sweating. And that's because the humidity here can be pretty high. So keep that in mind. When we move over into September and October, my birthday's in September. And historically, it is always beautiful. If you want to visit Ohio, visit in September and October, because that's when we're starting to see beautiful. We got a lot of blue skies coming in, which again is a blessing, because January, February, we have a lot of gray clouds. So seeing those blue skies like that is what we're looking for. And you're going to find that in September and October timeframe. The leaves start to change. The weather is right here. It should be like in the 60s, 70s. You know, you throw on a flannel or a jacket. It's really, really nice that time of year. Then ultimately, when you hit November and December timeframe, it starts to get that frost. We might have 1 or 2 snows coming in, but ultimately we don't see a ton of white Christmases that we used to. So for the most part here in Ohio, we're gonna get most of the snow in January and in February. And again, it's not necessarily the snow, in my opinion, that's bad. It's gonna be the fact that we have so many gray, overcast days here. So that's my 2 cents on the weather. Continuing with the weather, this is a map of lake effect snow. So here in Cleveland, obviously we're right here on Lake Erie, and lake effect snow is going to affect the east side the most. This is basically when, I believe it's cold winds kind of meet with a hot lake. It just going to cause a lot more precipitation, and it always hits the east side super, super hard. Like, look, you have downtown Cleveland right here, Lakewood over to Bay Village. Like, they're maybe getting 1 to 2 inches on this particular day, and then you look over here in Euclid, maybe a 30-minute drive, and they're getting 1 to 2 feet of snow. So it can be that drastic sometimes that, you know, east side of Cleveland, you're going to get hit with snow a lot more. It's just the way it is. Cleveland's just perfectly, it looks like, on that snow belt. So if you move over to the west side, you're going to tend to get a little bit less snow, especially when compared to the east side. All right, now continuing with the cons, we're going to talk about that Cleveland does have pretty high crime here, and we're specifically looking at the inner city of Cleveland. Here's a crime grade map, A+ obviously being the safest, which is typically going to be the suburbs, the outer suburbs surrounding Cleveland. And if you look at the F crime map, I mean, ultimately the inner city of Cleveland historically is going to be the areas with the highest crime here. And if you look over here, this is actually, I believe, I can't remember if it's a homicide map or a gunshot map, but regardless, you can see that this kind of creates like this little C right here, which matches up with this crime map. So when we talk about a lot of the crime, it does happen particularly in the inner cities of Cleveland themselves, not so much in the suburbs. So keep that in mind when you're moving here. All right, continuing with the cons, this honestly is going to be the limited access that we have to Lake Erie. I mean, we have Lake Erie in our backyard, and to be honest, we do not utilize it like we should, or at least in my opinion. This is obviously just Google Earth here. I want to show you the limited access that we have here in terms of access to Lake Erie. All right, so let's start over here in Bay Village. Just wanted to start at Huntington Beach for you guys. This is a really good park over here on the west side of Cleveland. We'll try to blow through this pretty quick, but I want to show you the limited access that we have to Lake Erie. So the access that you do have, again, in Bay Village, Lakewood Park, Edgewater, it's very important to take, you know, pride in those areas and actually go to them and visit them, because we just don't have enough places like that. We're going to scroll all the way over to Cleveland here. So like, you have big cliffs, a lot of residential properties. And a lot of these properties, I mean, I think this one probably $6 to $8 million. A lot of these properties are all $1 million properties right along Lake Erie. But look, we haven't ran into another beach. Just residential homes. Got a nice little pier right there. This is a small, maybe private beach. Then we have Clifton Beach, which is a private beach, so it doesn't have public access. Keep scrolling. I mean, look at the cliff face here. All right, this is going to be Lakewood Park that I was talking about. So you're not getting in the water here at Lakewood Park, but this is the Solstice Steps. And the sunset's going to go to the west. So ultimately, you sit right here, you're going to see the sunset right along Lake Erie here over Avon. I mean, it is absolutely stunning. If I can figure this out here. Heading over, this is going to be the Gold Coast. We're getting into Lakewood. We're going to start to get into Cleveland here. I mean, look at this. Just cliff face. Something I want to bring up, Pier W. Look at this. Looks like a ship. And basically, it just is a nice seafood place overlooking Lake Erie. It's really cool. I think you guys get the point. We're just gonna go head over to downtown Cleveland. Here's Edgewater Beach. Again, overlooking pretty much downtown Cleveland. Really hot spot. We actually, my wife and I lived right over in Battery Park. So we had access here to Edgewater Beach every day, and it is always popping. There's always something going on over there. And then look, you have an arena right here. You have some shipping and different various businesses right along here. We head over here. This is going to be Whiskey Island. If you wanted to play volleyball, they got a ton of volleyball courts here. They always have leagues going on in the summertime. This is going to be the Flats. This is where people go to party, ultimately, downtown Cleveland. But look, these are all like just shipping and logistics. We got the Cleveland Browns Stadium, right? We have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame right here. We have Burke Airport. Like, you're just not, we just don't have enough access to Lake Erie, unfortunately. And that's one of my biggest downsides of, oh, here we go, here's Bracknell. See if we can show you some of these homes. Yeah, I mean, they're stunning over here. So, definitely a con. It's actually a really good thing that we have Lake Erie, but it's definitely a con that we don't have as much access as I think we probably should. So we're going to kind of continue with the cons here. Let's talk about some of the lack of diversity in some of these areas. Like overall, Cleveland's a very cultural rich and a very diverse city, because when you look at Cleveland's history, I mean, this city was built by immigrants. Back in the 1800s, early 1900s, so many people were moving to Cleveland because of the amount of jobs that we had here. So ultimately, like I said, Cleveland is a pretty diverse area, but the fact is it is pretty segregated in a lot of these areas. You know, we have places called Little Italy on the east side of Cleveland. We have a Slavic Village, which is a Polish neighborhood. We have an Asian town, which is known for its Chinese and Vietnamese community. Then we have Clark Fulton, which is predominantly Hispanic and Latino and Latin community. And so, like I said, while Cleveland is pretty diverse, I mean, it is pretty segregated. The reality is you'll find that a lot of communities here are going to be either predominantly white or predominantly black. Like when you look at the west side of Cleveland over here, obviously blue here is going to be white. I mean, most of these outer ring suburbs are going to be white. Over here on the east side of Cleveland, this is going to be neighborhoods that are predominantly black. So if you are looking for an area that does have good diversity, you're going to be looking in a few kind of select spots, in my opinion. East sides are really well known for having good diversity. Places like Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, over here into Beechwood. This little pocket right here, going to have a lot of diversity. You'll see a lot more diversity too, kind of a little bit more in Lakewood, maybe not as much, but even in Ohio City, kind of heading down into maybe even Clark Fulton, which again is that Hispanic community. So keep that in mind when you're moving to Cleveland. If diversity is definitely something that you're looking for, again, I would stick with a couple areas here on the east side, maybe just a few areas on the west side, but ultimately you can see it's mostly white, mostly black, with a few Hispanic, Asian, and a couple different other ethnicities right here in Cleveland. So that brings us to our next con. We're going to talk about the property taxes. We have the Cuyahoga County on the left, Medina in the middle, and Geauga. Ultimately, I think we have 5 different counties here in the area. So these are just a glimpse at a few. You can see when you look at Cleveland or Cuyahoga County, pretty much all of them are at like 2 to maybe 3% for the most part. All right, now this is a map of basically Cleveland, Ohio, and all the suburbs of showing where the highest property taxes are actually located. Now, if you look at Cuyahoga County and Summit County, which again, this is gonna be Cleveland, and this is gonna be Akron, these are gonna have the highest property taxes, with the very highest property taxes being over here on the east side of Cleveland, like places like Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights historically have one of the highest property tax rates right here in Ohio. So I want you to keep this in mind when you're looking for a property, that we have so many, again, different municipalities, and each place has their own individual property tax percentage, which is going to vary drastically. And if you're one of those people that is looking to obviously not pay a ton of money when it comes to property taxes, then you can look ultimately on the outskirts here. Like if you take a look, we're over here in Lorain County. If you look at like Columbia Station, if you look at like Brunswick down here, Richfield, Hinckley, over here into Aurora, up here into Chesterland, ultimately you can be within like a 35-ish minute drive to downtown Cleveland. But typically your money is going to go a little bit farther for a house, and you're going to pay less in property taxes. So keep that in mind when you do come here, that property taxes are definitely going to affect your monthly payment when it comes to your mortgage payment. Now, if we scroll down here, we got the areas with the best downtowns. And these are the areas, right, when people are moving to Cleveland, they don't typically want to move to an area that's really rural. They want to be a little bit where the action is. They're moving to Cleveland, right? Not to the suburbs per se. They want to be able to see what the city has to offer as long as it's within a certain amount of drive. So areas with the best downtowns, we have Ohio City, Tremont, Edgewater, and Lakewood. They all going to be on the west side of Cleveland. I talked about this before, about kind of who's moving there and what's going on. These are really big, popular areas. Really good downtowns. You got West 25th, you got Gordon Square, all the way over into Lakewood with Detroit and Madison. So there's a ton that this little place offers if you're looking for kind of like that nightlife, or if you're looking for really good restaurants, or really to be really close to that downtown area. There's always something going on within these little pockets here. Now we obviously on the east side have University Circle and Shaker Heights. Again, University Circle is going to be Cleveland's second downtown. There's a ton that is going to be able to offer there. And then when you move over to Shaker Heights finally has a downtown area. They never had one historically, but they've been building and revamping Van Aken District, which is Shaker Heights' new acclaimed downtown area. And it's really nice. They got a bunch of little shops over there, a bunch of little restaurants to eat. They just put up brand new residential towers with like over 200 units there. So a lot of people are starting to move into the area, and we're going to see probably a lot more growth within Shaker Heights personally. Then we're going to move over to Chagrin Falls. Like I said, this is that postcard-worthy town. They have a beautiful waterfall right downtown. When you walk down there, I mean, you got a bunch of little restaurants, little nail salons, little bookstores. Like Chagrin Falls is one of those places where anytime someone visits Cleveland and they check out Chagrin Falls, I've never heard anyone say anything bad about it. I mean, downtown can get a little congested. It does have one of the best downtowns that Cleveland kind of has to offer in terms of like the suburbs. Now, if we scroll down, we got Hudson. Hudson's one of those areas, again, it's a really big family town. They do have a really nice downtown. It's not huge, but again, it's a walkable area. You can grab some ice cream, some pizza. There's a couple different restaurants, a couple local stores. So Hudson's also a really good area, and also has one of the best school districts as well in terms of Summit County down here. Now, if we scroll down to Cuyahoga Falls, a lot of people kind of compare Cuyahoga Falls to like Lakewood in terms of like, hey, if you're looking for an area that has like a decent amount of like nightlife, good bars, good restaurants, walkability with like a downtown, people kind of always compare like Lakewood to Cuyahoga Falls. If you're kind of looking for like that a little bit more of a younger atmosphere, I definitely wouldn't not consider Cuyahoga Falls. I actually lived there before, and relatively, it's a pretty easy drive. You kind of just take this highway straight north, and to be honest, you are about 40 minutes outside of downtown. But usually people moving to Cleveland don't go this far south. If you're going to be moving to like this Akron area down here, Cuyahoga Falls is going to be a really great option for you. And then we head west over here to Medina. Medina's got a cute little downtown. I mean, it is kind of out in the sticks a little bit. You can see all this greenery around it. Nice little downtown, but again, it's going to be pretty rural outside of it. But Medina is one of those places where your money's going to go a little bit farther. Lower home values typically, and the property taxes are going to be a lot lower when you compare them to the tax rates up there in Cuyahoga County. Now let's talk about areas with new construction. We got places here in like 1910, we're talking for like Lakewood, 1940s and up for Shaker Heights. So we've seen these places already kind of built out a lot of times. So when we're looking at new construction options, we're gonna see development specifically around the Ohio City, Tremont area. We're seeing just whether that's tearing down homes and building brand new homes or vacant lots. They're starting to put up a lot of new development up here in Ohio City, Tremont area. Then if you head over to the University Circle area, honestly, around the actual University Circle area, typically has not seen a lot of growth in the last however many years, right? There's been a lot of vacant lots. Crime in these areas can be just a little bit higher. And you're within this Cleveland City as far as the school district. So we don't see a ton of people like kind of moving there, but with such the big growth of University Circle, we're starting to see a lot new development kind of get put up around University Circle area, since that is a pretty huge hub. Again, it's Cleveland's pretty much second downtown. All the new homes are going up. They're going up on the west side of Cleveland. I mean, all the way from like Columbia Station up to Avon. It's just a little bit more rural out in these places. So you're gonna be able to find newer construction options. I'm not saying they're super cheap. I mean, the average home cost here for new construction is probably $500,000. $700,000 if you're looking up into the Avon area. But if you go down to Columbia Station, you're looking at like $300,000-$400,000. Down to Hinckley, it looks like $700,000 to about $500,000. So historically, I mean, the prices are not super cheap in terms of the new construction, but we're kind of seeing them built a little bit more in kind of like the rural areas, a little bit out west. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more development go up out there in the west side, not just in homes, but also within the commercial sector as well, as these new residents begin to kind of move in here. And as you can see on here, I got a ton of different options in terms of where you can move to here in Cleveland. Really, it's just like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a quiet, safe area for you and your family? Are you looking for a walkable downtown? Are you moving here for a job relocation? How far do you want to be in terms of drive time to get to your work? I mean, you have so many different options here in Cleveland that I really can't just name one or two. It's just really going to depend on what you are looking for, and then we can kind of narrow that list down a little bit more. Most of these areas are going to be safe. They're going to have good school districts. I mean, that's what a lot of families are looking for, right? And so when you look at the west side of Cleveland over here, we got anywhere from Lakewood over to Westlake, over to Avon Lake Bay Village. I mean, this area over here, again, you have good access to the beaches. They have really good school districts. And they also have really good housing developments in terms of if you're looking for like those communities. Prices here do tend to be higher. Remember when I said east of 271 is going to be pretty expensive in terms of like, hey, where are the wealthy moving to? On the west side of Cleveland, I mean, over here, Westlake, Bay Village, these areas can get pretty pricey, so keep that in mind. If you're looking for something maybe a little bit more affordable, head down to Strongsville here. You got Broadview Heights, and then you have Brecksville. This area here is just south of downtown Cleveland, so you got really good highway access if you're over here in Strongsville, minus the traffic that they have in Strongsville. But over here in Broadview Heights and Brecksville, these are really good communities. They have everything that you need there. It's a little bit more suburban, so it's not like there's a ton to do. Like, I'm not driving to Broadview Heights to probably really do anything, but if you live there, you have everything that you need there. Same with Brecksville, really good community, right along the park system. We already kind of went over this. And if you head a little bit more south, you got Richfield over to Hudson. And again, you can kind of see what this creates. It kind of creates just a map on the outer ridges of the suburbs that Cleveland has. So we're going to move over to Aurora, to Solon, pretty much all the way up to Beechwood, Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, all the way up here into Highland Heights. So again, if you're looking for, most families that we help move here are looking on the outer ring of the suburbs. And most of the time, it's really going to depend on where you're looking in terms of your work relocation, or hey, do you have family over on the west side? We can find some areas over there, maybe Avon, maybe down to Strongsville, Middleburger Heights. It just really depends where you're looking for. But I hope this gives you a good guide on terms of like, hey, where are the single people moving to have fun? Again, we're looking up here in Lakewood, Ohio City, Tremont area, and where are the families moving to? Again, they're moving into the outskirts where it's safe, good residential homes, pretty much has everything that they have to offer. So, all right, but that's all I got for you guys. This wraps up the webinar. I hope this was a lot of good information about what it's like here moving to Cleveland. It's really hard to give you every single thing about what it's like to live here, but it's really going to depend on your situation, on whether you want that walkability, do you want good school districts, do you want good nightlife, do you want to be close to parks? I mean, there's so many different variables. Everyone's a little bit different, and every scenario is a little bit different. So hopefully this is enough information for you guys. If you have any questions, we'll talk here soon, and hopefully I can answer and help you guys with that relocation right here to Cleveland. Thanks for watching.